I think maybe I'd like to start, and I know you were involved with the founding of the party here in Brazil.
Yes.
Green Party.
Yes.
Why? Why start a Green Party in Brazil?
Well, as a matter of the fact, when we came back from exile, we had a very critical vision of the left, the Brazilian left. The Brazilian left was too classical in the sense that defined all the problems as class struggle problems. And we said at that time that you have the problems of the women liberation, you have the problems of the black people who are trying to, in a certain way, change their situation. You have Indians in Brazil, many Indian nations. You have sexual minorities claiming for their rights. So we had to, in a certain way, to give a new response to the very complex situation after, not after the fall of the Berlin Wall, but before, in the 70s. So we started a new way, and this new way signified in a certain, to a certain extent, to take to Brazil all the green ideas that we, in a certain way, collected in Europe. And at the same time, we tried to adaptate those ideas to the very difficult social situation in Brazil. So it was an effort to bring the Green Party to Brazil and not to repeat mechanically what was going on in Europe. So we started that, and at the same time when we started that, we thought to make a coalition, a green-red coalition. It was an European idea as well. We found this coalition in Germany. In France it was developing as well. So, and we decided to make this coalition with the Workers' Party, which was beginning as well as we were beginning. And but they represented for us the Social Democrats, and it was an association with Social Democrats, and it was the idea. So, and the Green Party started to work in Brazil. We have been struggling in many different elections campaigns, and until a certain extent we developed a little more than in the beginning. We have today we have 14 deputies in the parliament, and today we are considered a medium party in Brazil. But unfortunately, the Green Party in Brazil was not able to adaptate itself to the very fast changing situation. Not only the problems of the global warming, but the social and political situation in Brazil. And people understood and still understand that fight in a party as we have, it is to fight to protect the environment. But we have so many different complex problems that appeared, and we did not manage to answer to those problems. We are not able to present a power alternative, and I think that we have to develop this power alternative. And I have some ideas. Of course, we have to have an international policy. We have to have a policy for the workers, for the society as a whole. And I think that we have to make new things. And among those new things, I think that we have to associate ourselves with science. We had many prejudices towards science, and today, with the global warming and all those new situations, I think that scientists are very important for our work. And when you do not listen to science, as Bush, for instance, did not listen in New Orleans, you are in a certain way open to many different and very tragical problems. So we're trying to change this situation. And for instance, the Green Party in Brazil has nothing to say about education. What it has to say about education, that you have to educate for protect the environment. But you have very different issues inside this big issue of education that you have to treat them and you have to give some answers. So we're trying now to, I'm trying now to write some articles and to, in a certain way, stimulate the party to review its position, trying to be a party of this 21st century, not a party of the last century.
As a member of Congress on the federal level, clearly you've had to vote on issues like education in the past. Where did you take your guidance if the party didn't have a platform?
Well, that's the problem. No, my guidance is taken by my conscience and my personal education information. And I try to, and to a certain extent, I try to present this position to the party. But the party is complete now. For instance, we have the Tibet problem. I have been speaking about Tibet, and the party is open to the Tibet problem, but not so open as it would be, should be. The party is open, for instance, for the tragical situation of Ingrid Betancourt, the woman who was kidnapped and is still arrested by the guerrilla in Colombia. But we don't have a position about the international situation. Where are we as far as Iraq's war, as far as the Palestinian and Israel problem? Where are we about, I mean, all those problems, the immigration, what we have to say about so many people who live in their homes and trying to enter in the rich countries and being rejected by those countries. We have to understand that and say something about. We have nothing to say about 1.5 million Brazilians who live in the United States and want to contribute with our struggle. We have no paper for them. We have not even a site directed to them.
I find this surprising, since the party now is more than 20 years old. Do you feel that because you've been active on the federal level, you have to pay more attention to these issues, but that most of the party, because it's not elected on a higher level, does not pay attention to them? Or is it something else?
I think that the problem is they have been too much connected with the local situation. They depend very much in being elected and continues in the power, I mean, continues representing people. And they, until a certain extent, forgot to prepare themselves for the new situation. And today we have a party which is a little like other parties, like the other parties. It's not singular, it's not unique as it should be. So it's our next task to make the party a unique party, able to respond to this new and complex situation.
You helped to start a party that you believed would be unique. Is it something about the electoral system here that makes it difficult for the party to maintain that kind of identity?
I think that the electoral system plays a very important role. But I think as well that all the parties in Brazil are not able to respond to any new situation. They are on a high level of decadence. And I'm afraid that all parties all over the world are decadent. And we have to rethink how to do the things. Is it possible to make those parties survive? Is it necessary to find a new way of organization? And in that case, which kind of new organization we can develop? Those things are not so clear to me now. I sometimes think that the best thing to do is unite interested people all over the parties and try to do things when we need to do things, and then we don't do nothing, and then we come back, there is a new situation, you look, interest people all over the parties to deal with this new situation. Perhaps this is, this is an emergency exit.
Well, when you talked about seeing the example of Green parties in Europe in the 1980s, there was a lot of discussion with the German Greens about being the anti-party party and having different structures of accountability. Clearly with the Brazilian Green politics, you're a personality unto yourself. So now you're talking about examples where you would work with individuals.
Yeah.
Does that contradict the idea of having a party that's different? Because often they say the answer to corruption is having the candidate and the office holder accountable to a party. And Green parties have tried to be different that way. So how do you see that playing out since you've been at the top?
Well, I don't think that in the case of corruption, I think that the party has to control. And in Brazil we discuss very much who is the owner of the mandate, the party or the candidate. And we tend to consider that the owner of the mandate is the party. The candidate has to respect the lines of the party and has to respect all the general orientation of the party. And but I think that it's not perhaps the electoral system, but this the fact that when you have something in the power or someone in the power or in the chamber, no, in the Congress, everything he does, she does, is trying to survive. How can I survive here? What I have to do to survive? And when you start in this struggle for survival, you forget many things. You leave alone many things. And I think that it's very difficult, because if you don't care to survive, you lose the next mandate. You lose the election for someone who's dealing with that. So it is, I think that the next thing we are intending to do is to reform the political system and to have the local vote, the district vote. And if we have the district vote, we have the possibility to control a little more people who are in charge. But by other hand, we are very afraid that those districts send to the Congress only provincial politicians, interested only in their little ward. So we are trying to think how to combine those things. Perhaps make bigger districts, perhaps give more force to the big cities in order to have people more orientated toward the metropolis problems, which are very important in Brazil, and toward the international situation, which is important as well. Today I can say that Brazil is on the planet, and the planet is in Brazil, in one extent that we did not think about some years ago. Today we depend very much from the world, and the world is too much present in Brazil. So we have to change all our attitudes and all our system of work.
Before I ask you a question about the relations in the world, in my country we have elections by districts, and that makes it almost impossible for the Green Party to win. We always say we would like to have a proportional system. You're saying you have a proportional system and you're concerned and you want to go to districts.
Yes. Yes, one of the problems of the district is that the impossibility of minorities to win. But perhaps we can, as I say, have more bigger districts and having more candidates, more elected people in the district. that at the same time attend this necessity of having a new direct representation, and that at the same time may assure the minorities to be present in the process.
So a proportional system within districts.
Yes, exactly, or a mix of district and proportional system, and we're trying to find this alternative.
Okay, sugarcane.
Sugarcane. Well, sugarcane is very important in Brazil in order to produce biofuel. But sugarcane is not, it's only a part of what we call the solar energy that is going to replace everything. But sugarcane is not the alternative. The alternative is the solar energy. Among them, sugarcane and other biofuels are included. But you know, in countries like Brazil, you may produce sugarcane without treating the production of food. But in countries like the United States, in European countries, you have this problem. If you start to produce biofuel, you may raise the price of the food, with consequences very tragical for people who are in the limit. No. So what we are afraid in Brazil with the sugarcane is how it can, until a certain extent, change the situation of the forest, Amazon forest. The government says, and I believe until now, that it's not going to allow sugarcane inside the forest. But the fact is that the sugarcane is pushing the soya to the heart of the forest. So you don't have sugarcane in the forest, but as the sugarcane is coming, the soya plantations are coming to the heart of the forest, and this plantation have a presence very important now, and it represents for us a very important problem. First, because of the destruction of the forest, and second, because of the destruction of the basin of the big Amazon rivers. The pressure on the river named Xingu is too strong now. So, and if you look at the planet as a whole, China, until a certain extent, has not possibility to use their water anymore because they exhausted their water in the northern province. And they are coming to Brazil in order to produce the soya, to food, to their animals and their people. And now they are trying to buy land in Brazil to themselves plant what they have, what they need. But when you export soya, you export water. You are just sending water for free, because in Brazil, in spite of we have a project to charge for the use of the water in industrial level, they don't pay for water. So you can, the Brazilian soya is not so expensive. The Brazilian sugar cane is not so expensive. Nothing so expensive because you don't charge the water. And this is a very important problem for us.
So if you were president, what is the green approach to saving the Amazon?
Well, the green approach to save Amazon is first to have a plan. Second, to have an authority to discuss and to, in a certain way, organize people in Amazon for this plan. And the third one is ask for aid, for international aid. But I don't think that anyone is going to add if you don't have a very transparent plan, if they know very clear where the money is going, which kind of project is being developed, and which kind of preservation you got. So I think that Amazon depends on the world. But to make this dependence work, you have to have a plan. You have to have the population and all the big actors in Amazon around the table.
You talked about the need to have all the players at the table, international cooperation around the Amazon.
Yes. And a plan.
And a plan. What aspects could be part of such a plan?
What aspects? Let's start first. You have to make what we call here to define the zones. You have to define what you can do in which part of Amazon, because Amazon is not the same thing. It's bigger than a half of Brazil, the Brazilian Amazon. So you have different parts of Amazon. You have a wasteland, which is a very big wasteland, so big as some of the Brazilian states. And this wasteland, it's not a wasteland, but it's a part of the Amazon which was destroyed. And you have the chance to rebuild the forest, to replant the forest. So I think that should be good to recuperate what you can in Amazon. This is very important. The second thing I think that could help Amazon is try to develop everything which is sustainable, I mean in terms of production. The third is to develop a very important tourism, ecological tourism, controlled but ecological. The fourth, which is today for me most future oriented, is how to exploit the Amazon in terms of studying the plants, using them first as medicine, nurse. You have so many things to do with those plants, and you have so many things to develop. And I think that Brazil, if not having the money, as Costa Rica did not have, should define some parts of the Amazon and develop a partnership in order to exploit this area. And you may have very clear contracts. If you find something interesting, you have this part of the money, we have this part of the money. The people who knows the thing, who know the thing, I mean the people who has the, popular know-how, they will be recompensated as well. So these parts of the development of Amazon are very important for me. Ecotourism, research, scientists, research, production, sustainable production. All those things may combine with Amazon as well. Even water, even the Amazon water, you could export for some parts of Brazil, or even for the Middle East, the Middle East. And I think that Amazon is so, you have as well many parts of Amazon that you could exploit mineral richness of Amazon. But you should do that in a very special conditions and a very controlled condition. For instance, you have a part of an Indonesian named the Cinta Largas. They have diamonds. They have too much diamonds. So you could, in a partnership, exploit those diamonds. You could do that in a very clever way in order to protect the forest and at the same time find a new way to finance all these things. But if you don't manage to finance everything, at least the international aid could compensate the ecological service that Amazon can give to the planet. I mean, the stabilization of the climate in Brazil, the importance of this stabilization for the Brazilian agriculture, for all the climate stabilization that we need very much.
We often hear in the north that For example, in my country, the United States, we've cut down 95% of the forests that were there 300 years ago. And that to ask Brazil to not cut down its forests is being unfair economically. So do you believe that there is a debt owed by the global north to fund the restoration in Brazil for the ecological services?
I think so, but you cannot ask the North to pay for things that they do not control, and to pay for projects that are not well monitored. You have to present scientifically all the service that you are going to produce. You have to show this in a very transparent way. And I think that the North is ready for this. We are not ready as well. We have to give them a plan and give them all the guarantees that we can do the thing with the money they would send to us.
That brings us back to the discussion of corruption that you were talking about before. Also, the last time that, I think it was when Lula came to the United States, he was suggesting to Bush that they expand the sugarcane exports internationally, which you said would have a bad effect on the forest, instead of trying to negotiate the kind of trust and cooperative. So Lula was elected from the left, the closest party to the Greens, and yet they're not pushing, his party is not pushing the kind of policies that you're talking about, and time is running out for us in terms of global warming.
Yes, time is running out, and we need very much a green perspective in the presidency. I mean, we need a green perspective to govern the country. You don't have to have a green party president, but you have to have a president who is orientated towards the green ideology. And it's very difficult because the pressures, I mean, what you have in the United States, you have, for instance, a very strong lobby of the oil in the government, the oil industry. But in Brazil, we have very strong lobby of the agribusiness. And you have to deal with this, because they say we produce the dollars that Brazil needs. We produce the food that Brazil eats. And we produce everything that we can export to other countries. So we are the motor of the economy. How can you say that you are going to preserve the forest in order to stop our development? So you have to have very good arguments in order to discuss with them, because they are strong, they are rich, they are very well organized, and at the same time they are very efficient.
Would you support northern countries in the post-Bali, post-Kyoto regime? Would you support northern countries being able to buy emission credits by preserving the rainforest in Brazil?
Well, this is the clean development mechanism. It was something I wrote about the Kyoto Protocol, and I think this mechanism is very important, but it's not sufficient. I mean, you have to understand this climate change in a more dramatic way. I think that it's important to have some projects here, to send some money here in order to reduce the emissions there. And it's less expensive to reduce the emissions here than to reduce there. So it's a good business as well. But it's not sufficient, because we have to change the whole model of producing and consuming. It's a very slow revolution that's going on. And in that revolution, many things have to change, and many things that not have changed yet. And I think that one very important thing, is to change the pattern of industry And I think that today 3 countries are trying to do that. It's Britain, Germany, and Sweden. They, until a certain extent, they showed us that it is possible to grow and at the same time reduce the emissions. And this is the problem, how to grow and how to reduce emissions at the same time. I don't see anymore this contradiction south-north as the most important thing. I don't think that Brazil should allow Russia, India, and China in order to protect themselves, to have goals of emission reduction. I think that we have to have goals. We have to have the very clear goals, because it doesn't matter that who starts the destruction. The problem that we are in the same boat, and the things that are getting very serious. Of course, it matters who started, who is richer. Who started and is richer perhaps can do more. But the fact is that everybody, every country is responsible, and this responsibility cannot be hid under the table of the north-south contradiction. Every country, and China is responsible. China has to be pressed in order to change. And I think that for China and for all the Occident industry, it's a very important game, because at the same time you can change the pattern of the Chinese industry, and at the same time have new markets, very important new markets for those new Western industry and the Western science. So I think that it's time to think in a kind of slow and sweet revolution, changing everything. And many people say, but how can you, in countries like Brazil, this revolution means that you have to have food for everybody and a house for everybody. I mean, a life that we can say it is a dignified life. But at the same time, I don't see in the future the same life that the Americans, Europeans have now, because they use many things. They use many material things. They produce many material things. If we recycle, if we repair, if we reuse those materials, we can have, and doesn't mean that we are not going to consume. We are going to consume very much, but immaterial products. For instance, when I was a boy, the disponibility, availability of a film, I had one film for a week, one new film for a week. Today I have 500 a day, you know. And the consumption, the immaterial consumption is growing very fast. And perhaps you can, in a balance, this growing of the material production with a certain contention, that has a discretion in the consumption of material things. It takes time, but...
Well, one of the most energy-intensive habits we have is eating animals. And that clearly has an effect on the rainforest here in Brazil. Mm-hmm. At the same time, your culture here in Brazil is a heavy meat-eating culture. As a green, how do you resolve that question?
Well, I think that what can solve this question is information. Information about what is to eat meat, what is for you as a person, what signifies for your organism, and second, what signifies for the whole balance of the earth. And if you look at the Brazilian plantation, where you have many cattle, they consume first. They produce methanol, which is very heating gas. This is very clear. No? The second thing, they consume too much water, and which is when you see 1 kilo of meat, what you have to produce in water and everything, you see that perhaps we are stimulating a very destructive way of life. And of course, I respect very much the freedom and the liberty to choose whatever you are going to eat. But I believe that when you look at the United States, in the United States there is a changing pattern in the American youth as far as animal food. And you see this pressure in the beginning, all the McDonald's, they did not believe in that, but now they are pressed to say which kind of treatment we are going to the chicken we are eating, which kind of cattle we are buying, how do they live, which destruction they produce. This was a certain, of course there was the animal liberation movement, but the youth is thinking very much about that, and the pattern is changing, and they have to change as well. And I believe very much in this education and information work.
Earlier, you talked about the difficulties about water use and the fact that the price of water isn't included with a lot of the crops. Would that be part of the strategy in terms of dealing with the true cost of meat, to internalize the price of water in your country? And if so, what are the political obstacles to doing that?
Well, as far as the law is concerned, I was the reporter. I think that there was it was a certain openness to the law, but you have to organize the basin committee, and at the same time you have to have this basin committee of the river. You have to have the money to use in the basin. And in Brazil we have a very big problem. If you pay for water waiting that they are going to reimburse the money in the basin in order to protect the river and to maintain the water flowing, the government is going to use the money in another thing. So you pay for the water, but you don't have back the service in order to keep the river wealth. And this is the problem, this mistrust in the government. Yeah.
And would it be possible to implement a dedicated tax on water that would be dedicated to fund these kind of projects, or is that politically untenable here?
No, it's not politically untenable. I wrote in the law that 100 no, because you have the costs of administration, but 93% of the money should be reinvested in the basin. But even so, people don't trust in the government, because you have the law, you write down the law that all the money must be but you don't control. The money goes to a fund, you know, and you cannot control where the money is going in a form very, you know, you don't have this kind of precise control. You know.
Wow. That's not very transparent government.
No, even as transparent, you know, the transparency is beginning to. We have a tax which was dedicated to wealth. We had many wealth problems. We voted this tax, and the idea was to dedicate all the money to the hospitals and the wealth system. But as time went by, we discovered that the money was not used in that, and it broke the confidence in the government, and this tax was defeated in Parliament. We don't have more this dedicated tax because people don't believe. So the government has to become transparent and convince people that if they pay a money for a certain aim, this money is going to be invested precisely in that aim.
So you have a challenge here both on the policy level and on the implementation level that seems much greater than other countries.
Yes, yes, very special, very special, because the countries which are more organized and more established, with a level of confidence higher than here, the things are easier. But here we have to, in order to develop some policies, you have to convince people that you are going to do that. And people do not believe, and I understand them.
This issue of corruption and unaccountable government is something, when we were in Johannesburg in 2002 and dealing with what is sustainable development, the Global North said to Africa, we can't invest in you unless your government is more transparent. It seems like here in Brazil, you're kind of in the middle, halfway between Africa and halfway between the Global North.
Perhaps in the middle. We are fighting very strongly against corruption. It's one of my tasks in the parliament. But I understood that corruption, you cannot change people very fast. I don't even think that you can change people. You change the rules. And we're trying to produce new rules in order to make the corruption more difficult. That's what we can do. With new rules, with new framework, it becomes difficult to be corrupted. And I think that first and most important thing is transparency. The second thing is to use, as far as we can, all the electronic means that we dispose now. To use the internet, to use more and more internet, to have the possibility to enter in any, for instance, today you cannot examine how they are executing, how they are dealing with the budget every day. We have only the people in parliament can do that. You have a code, an access code. What we do, we asked non-governmental organization,
the NGOs,
to help us, an NGO, and we gave our code to them. And today we have a site named Open Accounts, and we follow everything they're doing, every cent they're using. They open because they have a part of the money. They don't have to money. They say that we're using in security, national security, security of the president, and things like that. As a matter of fact, this security, what the president uses, he says that everything is connected with security. We cannot know, for instance, how much he spent on a dinner, because we cannot know where he eats, things like that. They use this security pretext in order to avoid the transparency. But in general, we are becoming very transparent. So we have to, I think that's going to help very much. The other problem we have here, that the Brazilian laws are very complacent with people who are corrupted. They don't have, for instance, if you have a big process because you got money, I don't know, from a bank or no matter what, and you are elected to the parliament, they cannot arrest you anymore. The process goes to the special tribunal and takes years to decide. So the parliament is very attractive for every people who has problem with the justice. And besides, you have another thing. You have what we call here parliamentary immunity. That means if I go there outside now with my car and I get someone,
God forbid, yes.
I'm not arrested. They cannot arrest me. Because it's a special process. If you are a common man, you do everything, you are arrested, you have a normal process.
So this is an incentive for corrupt people to be elected?
It's a system. It's a system that have, and the problem, the very problem, those who can change the system are exactly those who are benefit by this system. And it's impossible to change because people are not, cannot change because, you know, you cannot see some things when those things means that you are going to lose money. And you cannot see something when you see that those things are going to make you lose your privilege. You know, it's impossible to change. And I think that only a political reform, changing those patterns, are going to help because otherwise, you know. And you have the NGOs in Brazil. What the government, what the people makes here, they build some NGOs and go to the government and start to send money to these NGOs. And you have, for instance, today we have a big scandal going on. A deputy connect with the labor ministry. They got a lot of money to some NGOs, some mayors as well. And the money, they collect a part of this money. And some NGOs belong to their wives, you know. And if you go a little further to see the NGOs that they built in Brazil, one belongs to the woman, the other to the brother, the other to the father. You know, all the families involved.
So there are few conflict of interest laws.
Yes, you can say that.
So, despite all of this, you've been in the federal level since 1995?
Yes.
What are the things you're most proud of accomplishing in the Brazilian Congress?
Well, I did many things in this Congress. I introduced many new laws, but one thing very important was to conduct all the process of the Kyoto Protocol in Brazil. We approved very fast, and I conduct all the discussion on the Kyoto Protocol. I think it's very important. The other is to put down the president of the chamber, to throw him back, because he was very corrupted. And now I decided to start a movement in order to put him down, and it was a very well succeeded movement. The other one, which is important as well, was to, in a certain way, destroy a very evil organization in the parliament. This organization worked like that. They took some part of the budget, and they bought ambulance for many cities in Brazil. But they used to buy the ambulance and to get a part of the money. And the ambulances are very old and very bad. So people depended on those ambulances to go to the hospital to be saved. And it was, so we could, in a certain way, destruct this evil organization. So sometimes we construct, sometimes we destroy, and we're trying to combine this destruct and construction work in the parliament.
Earlier you said it was important to have a president here who thinks green, even if they aren't from the Green Party. You left the Green Party and you joined the Workers' Party. Was that part of the strategy to try to affect Lula?
Yes, it was a part of, because at that moment the Workers' Party was dealing with environmental problems all over the country, and they were very combative. They were very ready for the struggle, and I thought that I could organize this green movement inside the Workers' Party. And as we were trained to go to the government, we could do many things. But the fact is that in the power, Lula took some distance of the environment problem. He started approving in a very strange way the genetical engineering food, dealing with you know, it was something planted in Brazil undergroundly, and he approved this plantation undergroundly. And at that time I said, well, if we are going to have genetically manipulated food, let's do the thing as the Canadians do. Let's examine the situation. Let's approve what is worth to be approved. Let's reject what's not going to be, what's not good to be approved. But the fact that in Brazil it was in a strange way. First they got the seeds from Argentina. They planted here the soil, and when the soil was planted and ready to be recalled, the government decided to legalize the plantation. So any kind of genetically manipulated food in Brazil enter like that. First you come undergroundly, then the government legalized. And I think it's not clear. The other thing that the government did, and I think it was very bad in the beginning, was to approve the importation of tires, those car tires, from Europe through Uruguay and Paraguay. So it is very bad for our environment. And other things that were done that I think showed very clear that they were not interested in an environment as they should be. So I failed in this. I thought that it was good to come with to bet. It was a good betting to come with the Workers' Party, but I failed. So I came back to the Green Party and start to work as a Green again, and not losing all the illusions to organize something green inside other parties. But at that now I think it's easier perhaps. The parties are interested in the green subjects and the environmental issues, and I think, but I don't believe that they are just integrate because they say, oh, this is interesting, we are going to deal with that. But there is no such thing as to believe, you know, to work and hard to change the situation. And I think we have to continue like that. Even the Green Party is not so orientated toward the struggle for change thing, you know. So we have to wait the crisis, more conscience. Unfortunately, people do not anticipate the facts.
Well, what you're talking about has been one of the traditional debates about starting a Green Party, about whether you can reform one of the larger parties or whether there is a need for a Green Party. It's somewhat ironic to hear you, as somebody who helped start the Green Party here, later go through the experience of trying to reform one of the larger parties and come back. You've gone circle twice.
Yes. And now I'm thinking in doing something which is different. Not to build the Green Party, not to come back to a big party. Try to find a new way out of this mess. You know? That's the thing.
Now, earlier you talked about the Green Party was so focused on local issues that it didn't have a sufficient program on the national level. Yet, after all these years working on the national level, you're going to run for local office.
Yes, yes. But the problem is that I did my job, the national, international level. I did what I could to the country, and now I understand that you have the climate change as the biggest problem. But the second biggest problem for me is how to administrate the metropolis, which is becoming completely impossible to administrate. Rio is the Bladerunner City, you know, and how to avoid this Bladerunner situation, or how to attenuate a little. And I think that with my experience, not in the international, national level, and with my international experiences, I have to change. So in 2004, I started gradually, because, you know, it was difficult to liberate in Haiti. We start an Islamic you have to render some service, otherwise the people are not going to believe in you. So it's not easy to liberate a city, but Rio is not liberated.
You need the army in Rio?
I think we need, not to do everything, but we need the army in the background. We need the army in the logistic work. Because what we need, information, what we need, capacity to fight in the right moment, and what we need, social service, which continues doing things for people in order to show them that the government's more interested than the drug traffickers and the former police.
And to whom do they owe their political allegiance?
Depends. And the part where the traffic is controlling, they own to the traffic. And the part which is controlled by the former police, they own to the former police. And some of them are free in the sense that you have secret votes. They can vote, for instance, for me. They can do that. But some people who come from the interior of Brazil, they do not believe in secret vote. They think that their vote is going to be decoded by the traffickers and the former police say, we are going to know who voted whom. It's difficult.
This is the tape. Is there anything else